Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Levine. I go by the username Andrarchy on the social media platform Steemit, and today I want to talk to you about the ketogenic diet. This is a diet that I will be experimenting with for the next few weeks, and what I want to do is make a series of videos and present the information in a way that enables you to follow along in a very efficient and organic manner. I haven't started on the diet yet, but I've assimilated a bunch of information that I'd like to share with you because I have high hopes for this diet. I don't really like calling it a diet for reasons that'll become clear, but I think of diets as being pretty faddish and pretty pseudoscientific, and I don't think that the ketogenic diet falls into that category. In order to get started, I'm going to turn to a mechanism I've used in the past that I think helps me deliver information in the most digestible format possible, which is the whiteboard. This is something I've done with my first principles videos, and I think that it could be useful in a wider variety of contexts as well. You could, of course, view this as kind of the first principles of the ketogenic diet, but what I also like about the whiteboard more generally is that it forces you to conserve space. It forces you to simplify your ideas, to boil them down into the most essential elements. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of information. What I really want to do here is break it down into all the vital information that you need to consider whether this dietary regime is right for you or not. And I think that the whiteboard can help with that. Hopefully, what I like to do is start with a blank whiteboard, work it out live, and time lapse it so that you guys can kind of see the process unfold. So hopefully, not only will you learn the necessary information regarding the ketogenic diet, but you can also gain some insight into a potential method for simplifying information in the information age, in an age where data and information continues to grow at an exponential rate, and in which I believe, many people believe, the ability to filter information is going to continue to be hugely important, of growing importance as we go forward, as data, as information continues to grow at this massive rate. It's no longer about who knows the most. It's about who is best able to filter through all the available information, who's able to go look at the information in real time, quickly digest it, quickly repackage it into something that is more comprehensible to the human mind. And so hopefully this exercise will provide some insight into how we can do that, in addition to presenting information about the ketogenic diet. All right, so let's get started. I'm all done, so let's take a look at what we've got here. This is all about the ketogenic diet. What is that? It's maintaining a macronutrient ratio that mimics what your body is composed of during a period of fasting. But a ketogenic diet isn't about starvation. What you do is you just eat that ratio as your normal diet, and once you're in a ketotic state, even though you're eating as much food as you want, as long as you're maintaining those ratios, your body will remain in a state of ketosis. So basically your body will be behaving as if you're fasting despite the fact that you're not fasting, which I think is just kind of cool. Like, it's kind of cool how that works. The next thing I talk about is ketosis, because it's important to distinguish the difference between a ketogenic diet and ketosis. Theoretically, you can consume a ketogenic diet without entering into a state of ketosis. And in the past, the only way to enter a state of ketosis was to fast for 5 to 7 days. Because basically what you're doing is you're teaching your body to survive on a completely different fuel source than it's used to. If you consume an American diet, your body is adapted to consuming glucose for fuel because we have so many carbohydrates in our diet. And of course, why we have so many carbs in our diet could be a subject for many videos, and I'm sure already is, and books and all that stuff. It's probably not because it's what's best for you. It's probably because of the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, economics, subsidies, all of that stuff probably conspired to turn us onto a carbohydrate-focused diet, which then forces our bodies to adapt. Your very physiology changes to accommodate that fuel source. It's actually pretty fascinating. And so you have to, in order to get into ketosis traditionally, I'm not doing this, you would have to fast. You would have to deprive your body of fuel, of glucose, to force the body. So the body is going to burn through all of your glucose stores, and then it's going to start burning through your fat. But the moment it starts burning through fat, it doesn't mean you're keto adapted. It doesn't mean your body now is used to using fat as a fuel source, to deriving ketones from the fat to use as fuel. That takes even more time, and so that's why the fasting process has to be so long. You cannot remain in a ketotic state by consuming a ketogenic diet. If you don't fast for long enough, if your body doesn't go into a state of ketosis and you begin consuming a ketogenic diet, it's basically just a modified Atkins diet. It's just a low-carb diet. Lots of people do it all the time. They're not in a state of ketosis. Now, fortunately, there are supplements, and normally I don't like supplements. In my experience, supplements are synonymous with snake oil. They just don't work. I use MCT oil in my coffee for energy and for mental energy, but I'm even skeptical of how well that works. So now we have something called ketone ester supplementation, exogenous ketones. What they found, and probably the most famous researcher on this, the most well-known, the guy doing the most to get the word out about the ketogenic diet is a guy named, a doctor named Dom D'Agostino, and he was originally funded by, I think, the Navy, the Department of Defense, to figure out how to get divers to not have seizures when during the diving process. So if they're using rebreathers, basically if Navy divers don't want to be detected by the enemy, once they start going below 50 feet, it's only a matter of about 15 minutes before they start having seizures. And so his work was, he was funded in order to help deal with that, and one of the things he looked at was the ketogenic diet because it had been used in the past for addressing epilepsy or drug-resistant epilepsy and preventing seizures. And it had been proven very effective with very few side effects. And that's one of the great things about the ketogenic diet. One of the things that really attracts me to it is that it's got all of these other medical uses, which already is kind of a signal. Like, why is this so good at treating such a diverse range of things? But arguably even more importantly, it means that this has been tested for a long time. The ketogenic diet has actually been in use for, I think, around 90 years for various disorders, and there's little evidence of long-term negative consequences. And in fact, there's a lot of evidence of long-term positive consequences, at least assuming you do it right. It is a diuretic. It can cause you to lose salt, so you have to be sure to supplement with salt. People recommend using a multivitamin as well to make sure that you're just getting all of the nutrients that you need. However, it sounds like very easy to limit the potential downsides and take advantage of the potential upsides. And so the first thing he wanted to focus on was the ketogenic diet, but the guy overseeing his research suggested they focus on supplementation. It's a lot easier to give a diver a pill than to get them on a diet. What he discovered was that actually supplementing with exogenous ketones triggers ketosis in your body. And so you no longer have to fast for 5 to 7 days to trigger ketosis. And so that's what got me interested in this, is the prospect of being able to supplement with exogenous esters, enter into a state of ketosis, and then maintain that state with a ketogenic diet without fasting. They do recommend intermittent fasting or even longer term fasting because that has additional benefits. That's one of the things that got me interested in this diet in the first place, was that I've been hearing about the benefits of intermittent fasting and fasting for a long time, but I don't like fasting. The other good thing about these ketone esters and the triggering of ketosis is that when you're in a state of ketosis, it suppresses your hunger. And so that's part of the reason why you can fast for 5 to 7 days, because once you burn past all of that sugar, once your body does start digesting fat and creating ketones for energy, it suppresses the appetite, and people actually report like no longer feeling hungry, feeling a lot of energy. If you want to do intermittent fasting or more long-term fasting, perhaps to to accelerate your entry into a state of ketosis, using the exogenous ketones is a good way to enter ketosis early, so that which mitigates some of the negative side effects of fasting. There's a lot of pain, your brain kind of shuts down, back pain is really common. Basically, your body starts shutting down because it thinks it's running out of fuel. So it's a very unpleasant experience, but these exogenous ketones seem to be very effective at triggering ketosis, and it's really hard to find supplements that are scientifically proven to do anything. So when you see something like these ketone esters being effective, it really caught my attention. Now, the question of why. Why a diet? I don't like diets. Diets are like fads. They're usually BS. The way I think about it is that this isn't a diet. You're already on a diet, and it's called the glucose-adapted diet. And what's miraculous about this, and what's so interesting to me about this, is that your body is programmed to take two forms of fuel, to use two different forms of fuel. It's like one of those engines that can run on ethanol or gasoline. It would seem that nature has given us the ability to survive on both, and not only that, but in just a couple of years, it's already looking like using ketones as a fuel may be better in every way than glucose. And so, people have been talking about the downsides of glucose, the downsides of sugar, the downsides of processed sugar for a long time. We all know about the harm that sugar does to our bodies, the triggering of diabetes, contributing to obesity, all of that stuff. Nobody really needs to be sold on the downsides of sugar, and yet we haven't quite made the leap yet in general to going, well, there is this other form of energy that isn't based on sugar. It forces you to burn fat, it taps into your fat, and it has other benefits that I'll get to later. So I think that is a really good frame. It's about, do you want to be on a glucose-adapted diet or a ketone-adapted diet, and which is best for you? And of course, that may vary from person to person. I suspect that for me, the ketone-adapted diet might be better for various reasons, which I'll cover in a bit. So I'm calling the glucose-adapted diet GAD. And we know that the GAD contributes to insulin spikes, fat storage, cancer promoting, because cancer cells use glucose for energy. Their mitochondria uses glucose for energy, just like healthy cells do. The process of converting glucose into energy releases free radicals, which damage your cells, cause inflammation, and they contribute to the creation of disease. They're very bad. Everybody knows free radicals, bad, right? And the other thing is something called gluconeogenesis. When your body is glucose adapted and it runs out of glucose, it starts breaking down muscle tissue. So if you're trying to lose weight, if you're doing a lot of cardio, your body, when it runs out of glucose, it turns to your muscles, breaking down your muscles, destroying muscle mass in order to form glucose, which it can then use as fuel. The ketogenic diet stabilizes insulin, it burns fat for energy, it starves cancer because cancer cells actually have defective mitochondria, meaning that they actually can't use ketones for energy. I mean, think about how miraculous that is. Here, nature has given us the ability to work off of two very different fuel sources. Yet when we have unhealthy cells, it gives us the opportunity to switch to one of the fuel sources which that unhealthy cell cannot use as fuel. It makes me wonder, perhaps this is some kind of evolutionary mechanism for helping us heal ourselves. Using glucose as energy creates more free radicals, more dangerous molecules that cause damage to your cells than the use of ketones for energy. When you're on a ketogen adapted diet, I don't know if I'm using all of these terms correctly, so I apologize if I'm not. Part of the whole point of this video is that I'm learning at the same time. I'm trying to learn the ins and outs of this diet at the same time as I'm talking about it, so that you can gain genuine insight into what it's like to go into the ketogenic diet. So forgive me for any wrong phrasing or wording. Just trying to allow you to get the point. That's really what I care about most. And so when you're in a state of ketosis, your body is used to using fat for energy. It's programmed to use fat as energy, not muscle. So your body is using whatever ketones you give it, and when it runs out of ketones, it breaks down whatever fat you have in reserve into more ketones, so that your muscles and your brain can be fueled by those ketones. It doesn't then go, oh, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to go into gluconeogenesis, because gluconeogenesis is what you use to get glucose. Your body isn't in that frame of mind, for lack of a better term. It's not thinking about glucose, it's thinking about how do I get ketones, and the way you get ketones is by breaking down fat. And finally, it has anti-inflammatory effects. There are legitimate medical uses for the ketogenic diet, which I find very interesting. It's used to treat diabetes. The studies I found were in severely obese people with diabetes. It's used to treat drug-resistant epilepsy. It can be used to help treat cancer, ALS, Alzheimer's, dementia, migraines, and bipolar disorder. And so what you see when you look at this at the research is just this broad-based treatment. And when I'm looking at this, you can't help but wonder, maybe it's not medicine, maybe it's not good medicine, maybe it's just healthy, maybe it's just a good way to live. It just seems generally beneficial. A lot of this stuff relating to the brain has to do with insulin spiking and inflammation. So that seems to be the mechanism through which a lot of this stuff works. Not all of it is related to the effects on metabolism. So this stuff, the ketogenic diet, being in ketosis turns you into a fat-burning machine. That's one of, something people say about it. What's interesting is that that isn't necessarily the source of the beneficial effect of the state. The question you might be wondering is, why am I doing this? Why do I think this will be good for me? And the main reasons I've listed right here: energy, brain function, cognitive function, overall health. I've had long-term issues with chronic fatigue, brain fog, attention deficit. I never really got treatment. Periodically, I would try to get treatment, and people were very eager to diagnose me with depression, and they would prescribe me antidepressants. I also have something called a motility disorder, which makes me digest food really slowly. That's actually another reason why this diet appeals to me, because you can eat very few meals in a day, as few as one meal in a day, if you want to kind of incorporate intermittent fasting. So what I'm considering doing, what some people do, is you have like bulletproof coffee in the morning. So you would have coffee with butter and with one of these exogenous ketones. So you put that in your coffee, it suppresses your appetite, it helps move you into a state of ketosis when combined with an exogenous ketone like Keto OS or KETOGENIC, and that allows you to get to dinner without discomfort, without fatigue, in fact being very alert and very energetic, and then you have a ketogenic meal for dinner, a protein like fish, and then vegetables like kale and that stuff. That stuff is all great for my digestion. It gives me a lot of time to digest. None of my mental issues elevate to the level of a disability. I've always been able to struggle through them, but they've always been a source of pain for me. It's not fun feeling like your brain is foggy. And that also got me a diagnosis of Lyme's disease, which I received a full treatment of, and then later got retested, and they were like, nah, you never had Lyme's disease. So my cognitive function has been a source of, and overall energy levels too, have been a source of discomfort for me for a long time. So that's why I'm eager to see if, well, maybe I'm not well suited for a glucose adapted diet. Maybe that's why we have this other option, is because if one isn't right for you, you can switch to the other one. And given all of these potential benefits, and it reminds me of electroshock therapy, which has gotten a very bad reputation. However, it has actually been scientifically proven to be very effective, especially in very difficult to treat mental disorders, whatever you want to call them, mental problems, very debilitating disorders. And the way it seems to work is it just restarts your brain. It's just kind of like tabula rasa on your brain, start all over from scratch, and in many cases, people see marked improvement. This kind of reminds me of it. It's kind of like rebooting your body. It's like going, okay, glucose isn't working for you, let's try ketones and see what happens. And so I'm eager to just see how I operate in a ketotic state and to see if it's any better. And if not, then I'll revert. But it almost seems like, wait, why do we even consume so much glucose? Why are we on a glucocentric diet? Perhaps this is like a modern myth. This is like a modern religion where, because it's such a central part of our lives, eating so many carbs, eating so much glucose, that we view it as the standard. It's like the status quo bias, right? Because it's the status quo, we believe it must be right. Maybe our natural state, pre-industrialization, was one where we were often in a ketotic state. Maybe that's a more natural state. Maybe that's a more healthy state. I'm certainly open to the idea. The evidence just seems kind of overwhelming, to be honest. It just seems like it's just too fringe, it's just too new for anyone really to elevate to that level. But we got to remember, like, look at the food pyramid. Look how crazy our beliefs have been in the not too distant past about what is healthy or not healthy to eat. I mean, the bottom of that pyramid was carbs. Now that we've covered kind of the bare bones basic, I think the most important details of the ketogenic diet, more than enough to get you started at least thinking about whether it's something you might want to consider or not. Now we can go to the supplements that can help you get into a ketotic state, and really referring to them as supplements seems unfair because, as I said before, I think of supplements as just ineffective, as snake oil. But the beauty of that is it's kind of a loophole, which is that supplements are cheaper, they're less highly regulated, and they can come to market much faster than medicines. And these ketones and ketone esters and stuff and these medium chain triglycerides are not really patentable things. So in this case, the classification as a supplement may wind up helping us. And the beauty is, because, you know, I've tried all kinds of diets. I've had periods where I was working out very heavily, eating a lot of creatine, eating a lot of protein, eating a lot of amino acids, you know, just buckets and buckets and pills and pills. And part of the beauty of the ketogenic diet is there's actually only one supplement you really need, and it's either this Keto OS or Ketogenic. And then you can be done, and then it's just about your diet. So this really isn't about some big industry trying to milk you for money by selling you false hopes. These are scientifically proven to trigger ketosis. They can be used for medical purposes, and in fact, I think they are already, you know, for people who are suffering from these illnesses that are treatable through a ketogenic diet. So there's every reason to believe that these are perfectly effective. It's just a matter of consuming them and then sticking to the ketogenic diet. And so there's really only 4 supplements you have to think about, or technically really only 2. As I said, the Keto OS seems to be just the most straightforward, best supplement for getting started. That's because it has exogenous ketones, which are what your body will wind up using for fuel. Introducing those ketones into your body tricks your body into thinking it's in a ketotic state, and so it enters ketosis. So this is what I was talking about before with respect to not having to fast, triggering a ketotic state without 5 to 7 days of fasting. That's what BHB does. It's the exogenous ketones. Then they add the medium chain triglycerides in a powdered form. It's supposedly easier to digest, and that's the fuel, because like you can buy MCTs in a separate oil, which I'm going to talk about next. But in one podcast, D'Agostino said that he's really liking the powdered MCTs, that they're more efficient, whatever. I don't know the science. That's the fuel that your body is going to convert into ketones. So you've got ketones and the fuel for creating ketones in the form of MCTs. And then you have salts added to the powder to combat the diuretic effect of exogenous ketones. That's the main downside. So there, as I said before, there are downsides to using exogenous ketones, but from everything I've read and seen, the formulation of Keto OS eliminates them. The problem is MCTs can cause gastrointestinal distress for some people. That's where Ketogenic comes in. It's basically the same thing as Keto OS. It has exogenous ketones plus a different formulation of salts to combat the diuretic effect, but no MCTs in case MCTs are an issue for you. So Keto OS supplementation plus a ketogenic diet should enable you to enter a state of ketosis rapidly. Probably still takes 5 to 7 days of the ketogenic diet plus exogenous ketone supplementation in order to become keto adapted. I bought 3 packets of Keto OS, so we'll see how that works out. Oh, I forgot to mention there are 2 testing devices. This is what I ordered, the Smack Fat ketone strips. It's urine testing. And as you can see, it's $11 for just a ton of strips. The problem is it's not as precise, and supposedly once you're in a state of ketosis, they're no longer effective. But These Smack Fat ketone strips, they get 4.5 stars and 1,800 reviews on Amazon. What I'm thinking is that I can use these until they're no longer effective, and if I've proven that I can stay on the ketogenic diet, if I'm feeling good, if it's looking like I should remain on the diet, then maybe I'll get the Precision Extra for that extra bit of money, and whatever, I can share that information with you guys, tell you if it's worth it or not. The reason I have the MCTs up here is because C8 in particular sounded very useful for me. Again, it doesn't seem like it's required for entering a state of ketosis. However, this C8 is a rare MCT, medium chain triglyceride. You're not going to get a lot of it from something like coconut oil, a standard MCT oil. You have to order specific C8 either in the form of brain octane or keto MCT. Those are the brand names. The thing about the keto MCT is that it immediately increases your blood ketones. It works really quick. I figure in conjunction with the exogenous ketones, that'll help me get into a ketotic state. But also, it's great brain fuel. It metabolizes fast, and I believe that fast metabolization has to do with it making a very good brain fuel. And it has minimal gut irritation, which for me, as somebody with a gut disorder, a motility disorder, that's always a nice thing to see. C10 is the next fastest to be metabolized into ketones in the blood. So basically it's the next best fuel for your body to convert into ketones after C8, after caprylic acid. But that also means that it is slower to metabolize. People tend to report fewer cognitive effects. It's not good for mental energy, which is something I really want, and I suspect a lot of you out there might be interested in, especially the people on Steam It. It seems like the best source is XCT oil. That is from the Bulletproof Coffee guy. That has C8 and C10 in it. It's about $10 cheaper than the C8. I decided to go with the C8, and I'll let you know how that goes. So there you have it. That is my introduction to the ketogenic diet. I look forward to keeping you guys informed about how it's going. These supplements should be arriving today or tomorrow, and I should be getting started on that any day. That's it. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you have any more questions. If you're interested in staying up to date, learning more about this, seeing my progression, please subscribe on YouTube, follow me on Steam It, and I will see you around.